Okay, it's time. Time for our semi-annual open mic night for writers. Welcome everybody to Phoenixville Library. It's great to have you guys here, all our writers participating again. I've said this many times before, this is one of my favorite events of the year, actually two of my favorite events of the year. But I always find it such a fun and thought-provoking and inspiring evening. And those of you new to this event, hope you will find the same. So the way this works is we have 5 minutes for each writer. As soon as the writer steps up to the microphone, 5 minutes begins. They'll have that time to read from their work. I have a ringtone, I hope, set up on my phone at the end of the 5 minutes. I'll hold up one finger for 1 minute left. If you look up at me, I'll be back there behind the camera most of the night. And I'll be drawing names at random, and that's the order we will be going in. Oh, first a commercial. Oh, anybody here from our writers group here at the library? Oh, excellent, good. Gary Zenker now leads our group. Gary couldn't be with us tonight. He's usually here at this event as a writer himself. It's the third Saturday of each month from 1 to 3 upstairs. There's some flyers back there on it if you are interested in joining us for that. All right, let's draw the first lucky winner. Oh, and of course we have authors here with some of their books for sale. You can take a look afterwards. We'll have plenty of time for mingling. All right, our first author tonight, now let me get back there because I have to read the bio because I don't have it with me. Our first author tonight is Vincent Tavani. Vincent grew up in Phoenixville, studied philosophy, traveled the world, and came back to write poems for people on the street. He hosts the monthly Phoenixville Poetry Night.
Thank
Vincent.
you. And that was read because I just sent the bio about 20 minutes ago. So thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
I'd like to read a couple poems about my grandparents. I just have a 6-month-old, and so the world is new and different, and we got to visit my mom's family in Germany. So these two poems are about my Opa and Oma. Recently I was given my grandfather's pipe, so this is about that, like holding this object that he used to smoke. The smoker stands near death each time, not looking, just standing. For me, death looks like my Opa in that hazy way that childhood distorts around the stillness of the few photos. I could never remember the pipe's look. He stands there smoking with me, his pipe hanging from its still mouth and squirming. Curved, stout, slender, square, animated storyboards, AI flailing in heuristic fever, a statue chomping on a snake. His thin words wisp now from my own mouth. Last week, my aunt, whose husband died, sent me a thank you gift for his eulogy, the pipe of my dead grandfather, like a wrought iron door latch, bowl still blacked. Death is real, but never final. Praise to these needles of time's thin thread. The second poem was written shortly after my grandmother had a stroke, which rendered her nonverbal. And so she's still cognitively fully present, but she needed to go through a lot of growing, like spiritually, to be able to begin speaking, knowing that all her words would just come out sounding like blah 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 blah. And this turned out to be really difficult also because she was a speech therapist, so she knows all the sounds she's supposed to be able to make, and with great effort can. But it was also a great encouragement to my little son, who speaks the same language as her. So when he was sitting on her lap, they were just babbling together. And this poem is realizing that I won't have her forever. Grandchildhood. Begin with a handful of nettles. Be sure they're fresh. The ones by the chicken coop are best. Grab an egg before the farmer catches you, and laughing lifts you by your onesie to bring you up the road and home. After your grandfather is told why you weren't napping, let him measure 14 little men that spring up from the puddled rain outside the window where you sit. Let it all age until he passes. Gather the ripest raspberries at the forest edge, leaning from your bicycle, all of them, leaving none for the murky imps their taste evoked. Fold this in with fragrant seeds of the few lucky summertime grasses the farmer leaves in the field behind the family house your grandmother now has to sell. Spike with light from woven lamps that illuminate what can be moved to the apartment. Flavor with the salt staining the corners of Polaroids like cobwebs. Occasionally unhooked from page to retell the youths of those you'll never meet and those you know too well. Bottle tightly. Will keep indefinitely, though notes will warp like a wooden flute disuse has cracked. Be sure to pair with the late night bread cake your grandmother makes, while she still can. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. And I should mention, if you get to the 5-minute warning, just wrap up as soon as you can, where it makes sense.
Was that the 5-minute warning?
Nope, that was the 1 minute left warning.
Oh.
You didn't get to the 5-minute.
I'd simply like to say then.
Well, let's start the timer again. Here we go.
I have a monthly poetry night that happens at Great American Pub, and you can find this and other poetry events in the area, whether or not I'm running them at poetsoffphoenixville.com. If you have something poetry related that you'd like to share, please let me know. There's a way to get in touch on the website, poetsoffphoenixville.com. Thank you.
All right. Hey, you made it. Okay. All right, and our next author is Roseanne McGrath Brooks. She's a Phoenixville-based author, editor, and college writing tutor. She recently published the 4th book in her Vacation Friends romance series. She has a BA in English and French and an MA in Humanities. Roseanne loves reading and writing about romance, but often wishes her own heroes and heroines would get together more quickly. Things that make her happy include living near family, writing about grammar. Check out her website, www.roseanne.mcgrathbrooksauthor.com. Bell choir, biking, running, skiing, and the Eagles read book 2 or that. Roseanne.
I write inspirational romance, and this is the first book in my series, of which there are 4 books right now. It takes place in the middle of the book. The hero and heroine are Daniel and Emily, and they're starting to get to enjoy each other's company. They are with some other friends caught in an inn in a snowstorm, but they realize that they have to go back and pick up a dog from a friend's house of Emily's that he's in there and there's no electricity, so they need to bring him back to the inn. So, Chloe ran to Daniel and pushed her nose and then her midsection hard against his legs. Chloe is not the best guard dog, Emily explained, laughing. Looks like she thinks you're her new best friend. Daniel patted the dog's side as Chloe's tail pounded the back of his thighs. Any friend of Emily's, Daniel said to Chloe, is a friend of mine. Chloe let out a quick bark of agreement. How do we get her into the SUV? Daniel asked. Emily smiled. Fortunately, this dog loves to take drives. I'll show you. She opened the rear door behind the driver's seat and patted the bench. Chloe barked again, did a quick lick of Emily's hand on the seat, and jumped up. The dog bounded to the other window, looked out, turned around, sniffed the leather, and then plopped down. Emily could have sworn the Labrador Retriever was smiling. Daniel must have thought the same thing because he shook his head and laughed. Okay, let's hit the road. He started to walk with Emily to the other side of the car, but Emily put a hand on his chest. He had opened his coat at some point, and Emily could feel his strong muscles tense beneath her palm. "I know you're a gentleman," she said, "but the snow is getting deep, and it will take you too long to go around to open my door and then go back to get in your side." Daniel nodded and climbed in the driver's side while Emily trudged behind the Buick and put Chloe's things in the back. Then she walked around to the passenger side and lifted herself up and in. Before turning to settle in her seat, she kicked the snow off her boots and brushed what she could off her pants. The driveway wasn't icy, but the snow piles were growing. As soon as Emily had her seatbelt on, Daniel eased the big vehicle out of the driveway and started slowly down the road. It seemed darker than before, and they drove further away from Emily and the Jenners' neighborhood, the lights from the homes along the roads growing farther and farther apart. For a while, only a few dots of light blinked through the swirl of the snowstorm, like stars on a cloudy night, until there were none. "The visibility is terrible," Daniel muttered, almost to himself. Emily wondered if he even remembered she was with him in the car. He yanked off his hat in frustration and put it on the dashboard. "I can't even see the houses." "There aren't any homes on this road," Emily admitted. She was hoping Daniel couldn't hear the slight tremble in her voice. "On the left is the far end of a working farm, and this," she continued, tapping the window on her side and gazing out, "is that park I was telling you about." Daniel audibly gulped. "You mean the one where you can walk and walk for acres and not see a soul?" Emily sighed. "Yes," she said quietly. At that moment, Chloe sat up and began to whimper softly in the back seat. "I think she senses our concern," Emily said to Daniel, and then twisted around to pat her friend. "It's okay, girl. Daniel's a great driver." Chloe quieted and licked Emily's hand. Even though Daniel had already been driving only about 15 miles an hour, Emily could feel him slow the vehicle even more. His lips were curled inward in concentration. "This is a great SUV, but I'm starting to feel the tires slip," he observed. "I have to continue the momentum to keep us from getting stuck, but I'm worried about staying on the road." Even though he had just articulated his concern, as Daniel steered a 90-degree right turn at a barely moving speed, Emily was still shocked when the tires could not grip the asphalt and all three of them drove headfirst over the side of the road.
Leave us hanging, why don't you? Okay. All right. And next up is, where is she here? C.J. McGroarty. She's a former reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer and a Pushcart Prize nominee with an MFA in creative writing. Her work has appeared in a variety of literary journals and magazines. Her debut novel, Clara in a Time of War, was published in 2022 by Atmosphere Press. Her second novel, The House on Chambers Road, a supernatural mystery set in the Philadelphia suburbs, was published this summer by Literary Wanderlust. And she is currently at work on her third novel, a historical mystery set in 1788 Philadelphia.
Hello, thank you for coming. So this is, I'm going to read from my work in progress, which is almost finished. And it features a protagonist named Artemis Peak in 1788 Philadelphia. So here we go. Artemis Peak hurried down 2nd Street late for home. Mistress Clyburn had agreed to stay on with Lottie for an extra hour this evening, but that hour had passed, and surely the old woman was bunching her handkerchief in her fist by now, ticking down the minutes. She rounded the corner onto Market Street, and smack! A most solid obstruction repelled her with unyielding force. She stumbled backward, her foot turning under most uncomfortably, her lantern swinging wildly in her hand. "God's teeth," the obstruction spat. Artemis regained herself and pulled up her lantern. The jowly countenance of Barnabas Cooper materialized like a spirit out of the dusk. "Oh, Mr. Cooper, do pardon me," she said. "Pardon indeed, Mistress Peak." Barnabas tugged at his frock, exhaling sherry. "But you might want to mind where you're going." "Yes, I might," Artemis said, wiggling her foot. Was it still of a single piece? I suppose I was lost in my thoughts. Barnabas pressed his lips into a tight little frown. Afraid you'll miss your supper, are you? Artemis had missed many suppers in her 35 years on Earth, but she was certain Barnabas had missed not a one. He was as big around as a dancing bear. As you must be, Mr. Cooper. Well, I had better go on my way. Good evening to you. To you as well, Barnabas muttered. I suppose. Artemis considered Barnabas Cooper as she sped up the path along Market Street. Sour as a gooseberry. That was the kindest thing that could be said of him. But she thought piss pot seemed much more suitable. Beside her, the stone wall of the old prison rose up like a great dark barricade, dimly gleamed by the feeble light from a few lantern posts along the street. Since the new prison was built on Walnut Street years ago, this old one had sat mostly empty, its walls guarding nothing now but phantom miseries, and who knew, perhaps the phantoms of the dead, for more than one luckless soul had expired there. Sometimes, as she passed by, she thought she could hear them whispering. An old sorrow stirred and might have consumed her altogether, if not for the snort of a draft horse pulling its dray up the middle of the street. She paused, straightened her shoulders, and hurried on. Night had closed in. There were but a few other pedestrians about, a shopkeeper here, an office man there. From somewhere in the shadows, a watchman called the hour. 6 o'clock, and all's well. 13, 14, 15. She counted her paces up to the corner of 4th Street. Through the open door of the Indian Queen, the scent of ale and sawdust, along with a buzz of conversation, drifted on the mild evening breeze. Men gossiping over their brews and whiskeys, or debating the news of the day. The price of pickled oysters, perhaps, or the new bell at St. Peter's, or the latest happenings across the sea. Unlike some of the more unsavory groggeries around the city, the Queen was a mostly civilized establishment, its patrons tending toward respectable, aldermen, merchants, men from city offices, and a ship's captain or two. It had been shoulder to shoulder last year when the convention men were in town to set out the new law of the land. So many men with so much to say, and not a woman in sight to toss in her 2 shillings. Artemis crossed Market Street, her stomach rumbling. Miss her supper, indeed. 30 paces north brought her to a tidy brick square with peeling wood trims and windows that needed washing. Home. She mounted the granite stoop and whispered, "Huzzah," to the welcoming lamps in the windows. Mistress Clyburn did not always remember to light them when night began to fall earlier. Creak! The front door, thirsty for a few drops of oil, complained as she pushed through. With a single breath, she extinguished her lantern and set it down on the pine planks in the entry hall. Another lamp was already flickering on the little demi-lune against the wall. An envelope scrawled with black ink lay beside it. "Mistress Peake, there you are." Artemis glanced up to see Patience Clyburn, looking slightly astonished, as she often did, her light cloak around her shoulders, her day cap tipping askew on her gray head. Her lantern, already lit, hung from her hand. "I thought perhaps you'd sailed off to Santo Domingo," the old woman said. "A jape, perhaps. With Mistress Clyburn,
Go ahead, finish.
It could be hard to tell. There was never a smile or even a twitch of the lips to proffer a clue. Do pardon, Patience, I simply couldn't get away from the shop any sooner. That important order I told you about. I am grateful to you for your perseverance. Shall I walk you up to Mulberry Street?" "No need. Jane is to meet me at the corner, and I ought not to tarry. Until tomorrow, then." She took 2 steps and halted. "Oh dear, where is my head? A correspondence arrived for you from 7th Street this afternoon, delivered by a girl." She pointed toward the envelope on the demi-lune, and then hastened out the door. Artemis summoned Lottie with a shout, and then turned her attention to the envelope. Mistress Artemis Peake trailed across it in halting script. The ink smudged a bit on the last letter. An unknown hand, and one that struck her as quite serious-minded, the quill's nib having pressed the paper with determination. She dropped her hat onto the table beside the correspondence. First supper. "Charlotte Hannah," she called again, "do show yourself." There was a scurry overhead, and then the familiar footfalls, one light, the other heavier, on the stairs. A moment later, Lottie appeared on the landing, lamp in hand. She turned and took her last labored steps to the floorboards. "Mother, Mistress Clyburn said you'd sailed off to Santo Domingo." "Yes, I know." "Where is Santo Domingo? Is it far?" "Yes, sweet girl, a long way south." "I'm hungry." Lottie stood with her hand on the newel post, frowning, her blue gown a little too large for her frame. Artemis had seamed it generously, thinking that her daughter would soon fill it out and save her an alteration. At nearly 13, Lottie was growing like a pear tree. Artemis pushed back the fair curl that had come loose from her daughter's ribbon. "Pardon my lateness. I had a pair of gloves to finish beating." "I don't like it when you're late. Mistress Clyburn is contrary. She would not let me cut the carrots for dinner tonight." "Oh, why not?" "She said they should be cut just so. She says everything should be done just so. Why can't I stay on my own while you're at the shop?" A fair question, and one that Artemis had asked herself more than once, and her reply had always been the same. Lottie might tumble on the stairs, or Lottie might be careless with a fire, or Lottie might be lonely. Not that any of those misfortunes had ever transpired with or without Patience Clyburn in the house. "I'll tell you what," Artemis said, regarding her daughter's serious face. "I will consider reducing Mistress Clyburn to 2 days a week, and if that works out, I'll reduce her to 1. Now," she fingered a small gray smudge on the skirt of Lottie's gown, "it looks like you've been at your charcoals again." Lottie nodded. "Without your smock." "I couldn't find it. I think it's in the basket of laundering. You haven't done the laundering, Mother. And neither have you. At any rate, come, let's have supper."
Sorry, just to clarify again, when you hear the bells, that means wrap up as soon as you can after that. Okay. Thank you. Good job. All right. C.J. Hedrick is next. C.J. Hedrick is 37 years old and processes invoices in a company in Exton. He has 2 digital novels on Amazon and is currently editing the 3rd in a planned trilogy. Tonight he'll be reading an excerpt from his 2nd story, The Maratta Legacy, Doomsday. C.J.
Obviously this is in medias res, which, as we all know, is Latin for middle of the res. So bear with me if it gets confusing. Roughly 30 minutes after sitting down, Jubei recounted the previous night's latest to Kitty and Ruby. "Before we could think of the answer," Jubei said, 100 zombies burst from the ground. "Liar," Ruby said. He shrugged in mock defeat. "Fine, you got me. We handed the mages over to the officials, reported it all to Great-Grandma, and went home. Now, these Tanuma guys, what's their deal? A rival clan of Japanese adepts. Well, I say rival. In the beginning, the Maratta and the Tanuma didn't really clash because open war between 2 groups of adepts, well, you can't hide that sort of shit. They coexisted relatively peacefully until around the Industrial Revolution. By then, Grandma stopped wandering and settled down in Europe. Wandering? She and her descendants spent a lot of time touring Asian countries and absorbing the local flavors as well as their martial arts. Maybe staying at a new home every 30 to 50 years. But she saw an opportunity to settle down when the Industrial Revolution kicked up and built a permanent foundation for the secondary Maratta school in London. It was around this time she was considering passing down the mantle of charade keeper, since she'd been doing it for over 250 years by that point. Not that I have any business talking, Ruby said, but isn't this the sort of thing she'd want to keep in the family? Normally, Kitty said, but she was eager to try a new training regimen to prepare her latest descendants for the next tournament, which would take up more of her time. Regimen. I said regiment just then, didn't I? Anyway, enter Tanuma. The current heads of the clan approached her, said with their vast network nothing would escape their notice. What kind of network? Like Yakuza? Something like that, Jubei said, but don't hold that against them. Great-Grandma controlled the London mobs to cement her rise to power. She admits she shouldn't have done it, but seemed justified at the time. It seems the interview went badly, Kitty said. Apparently the Tanuma leaders were more interested in the perks than the responsibility, and she turned them down. They considered it a personal slight, feeling she deliberately wasted their time, and declared a shadow war on all Murata. They targeted Murata allies with street fights in Japan and England, so they couldn't openly defend themselves with their adept arts. They still do it in Japan on a much lesser scale, but Victorian England was brutal. Ruby's eyes widened. Wait, was Jack the Ripper at Tanuma targeting Murata allies? No, but I love where your mind went. Much better than Jubei's zombie story. He glared at Kitty while Ruby shrunk a bit. Luckily, Kitty continued, Eiko lived long enough to understand the sunk cost fallacy and saw the problem was, how did she put it? Like fixing a sinking ship, Jubei said, by buying a $10,000 roll of tape. Well said. So she cut her losses and, along with her children and guardian, sailed to America. Deciding to start more low-key, she moved to Connecticut and opened an apartment building with one of her guardians posing as the owner, because nobody trusted a foreigner back in those days. Then the market crashed. She frowned. Wait, sorry, I rambled again. Long story short, Eiko lived relatively happily ever after. The Tanumas still go after her, but since she's such a pillar to the community, they don't dare to declare open war on her. She does have to fend off an assassin once a year, but it's nothing she can't handle. Ruby tilted her head. She has to sleep with one eye open for the rest of her ageless life, and that's a happy ending. One person trying to actively kill her a year is a step up. Presidents have at least 1 million people who'd like to take a stab at them, and that's if they're in office for just 8 years. Imagine how many people and families should want her dead after 400 years. You needn't worry about Grandma, Jubei said. She's as tough as old boots, and twice as fashionable, Kitty said as her cell rang. Why don't I leave it at that?
All right. Good stuff, good stuff. Cancel, all right. Very good. Who's our lucky next author? It is Maria Hendrickson. Maria T. Hendrickson is an inspirational Christian author. It is her hope that she transforms lives through her writings. Hendrickson is best known for her Not Again series, a young adult faith-based romance saga set in the 1980s. Happily married for nearly 3 decades, Hendrickson and her husband are blessed to have raised amazing adult boy-girl twins. During the school year, Hendrickson works as a substitute teacher and considers it a privilege to be working with the future leaders of America. Hendrickson graduated from Shippensburg University with a bachelor's in communications journalism, a concentration in public relations, and a minor in psychology. Maria.
Hi. So, like he said, I'm an inspirational Christian writer. My books are coming of age, but for those of you that are in the audience are probably thinking this is just for teenagers. Actually, most of my readers are middle-aged, like myself, who grew up in the 1980s, because my books are set in the 1980s, and this particular scene is set in 1985, and it's a prom. And so, do we have any Madonna fans in here? If so, you're in luck. I happen to be a Madonna fan, and I have some Easter eggs in here for songs that were not yet produced at this time, but are referenced in this story. So if you can kind of pick them out as I read, maybe then you'll pay attention. Okay. After greeting one another and settling into the evening, the music cranked up, signaling it was time to get this party started. Upon hearing Material Girl, I grabbed Joey and raced onto the dance floor. Nothing got my blood pumping to dance like Madonna did. What a great way to kick off prom. The festive mood exploded with Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood. The flashing colored lights in tandem with the beat of the music prompted us to perform abrupt and quirky dance moves. The special lighting effects rivaled that of any Hollywood studio. The electrifying tempo segued to Walking on Sunshine. Katrina and the Waves created the illusion of celebrating summer on a sandy beach while waves crashed on the shore. Keeping the excitement alive, the DJ played All She Wants to Do Is Dance, followed by Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Want to Have Fun. We were all having fun, not just the girls. When the song, Just a Gigolo, filled the room, Joey surprised us with his fabulous rendition of a dancing gigolo, showcasing swiveled hips and hip bumps. Cheers and screams of approval from both male and female voices reverberated throughout the room. Joey's debut as a talented performer was a smash hit. After picking my jaw up off the floor, Joey and I settled into a slower paced sound of Crazy for You. My boyfriend mouthed the lyrics as we swayed to the music, causing my stomach to flutter. Tossing my head backwards, I replied, "You are crazy." His endearing smile stirred up the butterflies from within. My toothless grin fell short of my feelings for Joey. I'm crazy for you too. Another slow song, Saving All My Love, allowed us to savor the tender moment we shared. No words were exchanged between us as we floated to the powerful and beautiful stylings of Whitney Houston. The DJ spoiled us with more Madonna. My friends got into the groove with Dress You Up, and we celebrated our special holiday with Like a Virgin. Glenn demonstrated his impressive dance skills as he jammed to my favorite recording artist. Apparently, Glenn was a true blue Madonna fan too. Fortunately for us, Katie picked the fun-loving guys to be her boyfriend. Steve was on the borderline as he contemplated his dance moves. Morgan, Katie, and I cherished the efforts of our guys even more for expressing themselves. Everybody cut the rug with those lively tunes, except for Erin and her boyfriend as they walked off the dance floor because we were causing a commotion. When we slow danced to Can't Fight This Feeling by REO Speedwagon, Joey gave me his endearing cartoon look, with his heart pounding outside his chest. I couldn't help but smile and felt a warm glow well up inside me. Peace and joy overcame me as Joey and I swayed on the dance floor. The tempo changed to a faster pace when the DJ cued Footloose. We let loose as soon as we heard it. The song was a pleasant reminder of the first time we kissed at the gazebo in the park after watching the movie Footloose. As the magical night was winding down, You're the Inspiration invited couples to glide to its words of declaration. Appreciative that Joey danced with me the entire evening, I cast a demure smile in his direction. Relaxed in his arms, I closed my eyes as I nuzzled into him. Careless whispers eased us into the final moments of prom. Content yet tired, couples danced their last steps. For some, the evening was just beginning.
Thank you. Neela Kun is up next. Neela Kun graduated from the Tyler School of Art. She lives in Chester County, where she has a studio. She's a visual artist who writes poems. She's a member of Meeting House Writers, where they share their work and get support from the other writers. Neela.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I take all these poems from my everyday life, and that's what I'm writing about. The first one is called October Morning. Dog bumps up against my leg as I stand at the stove, impatient for my morning cup, scooping coffee grounds into a paper filter. Time slows as I wait for the water to bubble. A whisper of fall weather floats in the kitchen, still cool with night air. I wrap my robe tighter around my waist as I glance out the window. The summer leaves are turning, dancing on the wind. They sway and drift to crumple over the ground in yellow and russet hue. I pour hot water over the coffee grinds, watch the dark liquid water fall, filling the glass pot. The aroma of fresh coffee floats around me. This is called After You Died, I Rescued a Dog. After you died, I rescued a dog, baked a banana bread, raked leaves into piles, puzzled shadows into images, watched my friends age, fixed a flat tire, filled paper bags with old shoes and ties and books, vacuumed a rug, hugged a cat, looked out a window, made pencil drawings, glided over fields with a bird's eye view, splashed my feet in creek water, joined poetry readings, printed monotypes, celebrated a holiday, saw a play, fell out with our daughter, grew close to my brother, watched the moon rise and the snow fall. I thought your death was something to get over, like a winter cold, but that isn't so. And this one is Second Ave Man. On a gray day in a gray city, a gray man stands talking to a shadow. Animated fingers air dance about his head as he shouts at an unseen someone in the vestibule of his mind. Jigsawed on the window pane, I catch his fleeting reflection as thoughts roll off his tongue. Pedestrians cast a sideways glance at this man in dirt gray tee and baggy pants. His self-inflicted argument abruptly ends when he steps back on his heel, makes a left on Second Ave, and melts into the lunchtime crowd.
So much love. All right. Do. Greg Fox is up next. Greg Fox taught writing for the Phoenixville School District for 20 years before retiring in 2020. Now he spends most of his time corrupting his 2 grandsons and serving his 4 rescue cats. He does not write much anymore and has nothing important to share with you. He's only here to see his buddy Mark and visit Phoenixville for the first time in more than 3 years. Greg. Thank you.
This is a story about choices, I think. We practiced 3 religions in my parents' house, the first being American democracy. One of the conditions for my sister and I being allowed to live there after the age of 18 was that we show up at the local polling booth twice each year. Though we never felt coerced to vote for either party, my father's role as a scab basher while walking picket lines set the tone for our preferences. Next was the Red Cross. As soon as we were old enough, my sister and I were expected to donate 1 pint of our essential body fluids on a biannual basis, usually at the factory where my father worked as a welder. Photos were taken for the company newsletter, but first there was a questionnaire to be answered. Did you ever take intravenous drugs? No. Did you travel to the UK or Ireland for a period of more than 6 months? No. Did you ever have sex with a person from West Africa? Probably not. Did you ever receive money in return for sex? I wish. Did you ever have sex with another man after December of 1980? No. Actually, we broke up after Thanksgiving. While awaiting my turn amongst the other qualifiers, I realized I was in company with a bunch of very boring people. Then, of course, there was the church. Growing up in a large Italian-American extended family, Catholicism was an essential ingredient listed on the side of the box with my picture on the front and well baked into my DNA. I still eat tuna on Fridays, say grace before every meal, and bless myself whenever I take the Lord's name in vain during many of my DIY house projects. You need to be a good person to be a Catholic, my mother often proclaimed. No, Mom, you need to be a good person to get blood. Though I carried the crosses of each of my religions well into fatherhood, I offer them to my own son and 2 daughters as choices to either accept or reject, sparing them the suffering I endured throughout my parochial education. I did insist they attend weekly CCD classes in order to qualify for their sacraments, but mainly to keep them in favor with my own parents, as each would pass the required milestones for First Holy Communion and confirmation. Each in turn concluded that they had finally graduated from both church and Catholicism, never to return. But I kept the habit of accompanying my father most Sundays, especially after we lost my mother. My dad had cemented a comfortable quid pro quo relationship with God during his time in the Pacific Theater, and rarely boasted about his own involvement in the war. The Japs were good soldiers, he said, but they were trying to kill me, so I did everything I could to stop that from happening, and most of that involved praying. After watching a documentary about the Holocaust, I asked him if he wished he fought against the Nazis rather than the Japanese. Dad said he wished he never had to fight anybody at all. My excommunication from Catholicism was handed to me rather unexpectedly, if unofficially, on Christmas Day 2002. Father John Harris, pastor of my dad's church, thought it wise to bless the impending crusade against Saddam Hussein in Iraq. It is our duty as Christians to destroy evil in the world, he stated in his weekly homily. Reproaching him on my way out, I reminded him that his actual job as a priest is to embody the spirit of Jesus Christ, you know, the Prince of Peace and all that, not to advocate war. But what about Hitler? He countered. Ouch. It took me a few seconds to absorb the blow and regain my footing. What does the Holy Father have to say about this? I asked. I have no idea, he answered, and he walked away. A week later, I handed Father Harris a printed copy of John Paul II's proclamation saying war is not the answer and a peaceful solution should be arrived at through diplomacy. Then I told him that he needed to get with the program or I was not coming back. Father Harris quickly retorted by telling me to have a nice life. Now I wasn't sure whether this meant just his church or all the Catholic churches, but I accepted it as a company-wide policy. Free at last, free at last. Now I know there is no easier way to lose an audience than by talking about one's own religious beliefs. I will only say that my acceptance in the divinity of Jesus Christ is my own business and not yours. All right? But while browsing through both the Hermetic Kabbalion and the Talmud, I noticed that most of the words attributed to Jesus of Nazareth in the Gospels had already been written centuries before my Roman ancestors marched into Judea. And it really doesn't matter who said what, because it's all great stuff that neither needs to be explained by another mortal, nor even followed to the letter. John Steinbeck's East of Eden is arguably the greatest of the great American novels. Most people only know the second half of the story from the James Dean movie, which is a retelling of the Cain and Abel parable from Genesis. The first half of the book not only gives us the background story of Catherine Trask, one of the 2 most unredeemable characters in literature, the other being Treasure Island's Long John Silver, but it also tells the story of Lee, the Trask family's Chinese-American servant. When Lee goes to visit his elders to discuss Asian philosophy, he is surprised to find them deeply immersed in the Torah and focused on a single ancient Hebrew word, timshah. Commonly interpreted in the imperative by Western exegetes as shall or shalt, as in thou shalt not kill. But the elders realize that it possesses a more arbitrary connotation, such as may or might, as in thou may not covet thy neighbor's wife, or thou might. It's up to you. According to this more accurate translation, God has given humans the option to choose rather than to blindly obey, and we are neither compelled to pursue sainthood nor doomed to sin. Armed with this new revelation, before I am called to judgment before my Lord, I'm planning to have a really good time. Sorry, I ran over.
Glad you had nothing to say. All right. All right, up next is Myra Codner. Writing started as an escape for Myra Codner when she was in the 3rd grade. She won several literary awards in junior high school. She has had approximately 200 articles published in local newspapers. As a result of the subject she covered, she was listed as an unnamed source and was advised that people with unsavory connections were looking for her. Her writing then went on hiatus because she didn't think $25 an article was enough money in the event her picture ended up on a milk carton. Essentially, her life is a sitcom waiting to happen. She lives in Phoenixville with her husband Don and very indulged cat Tanzin. Myra.
Thank you. This is called The Cat Who Loved Toothpaste. It's essentially a belated eulogy to a cat we had. Our paths crossed with the cat when my husband and I went out for a jog in the neighborhood. The cat was black and gray striped with a white belly, attracted our attention when we noticed him balancing on the sewer grates. I went towards the cat and removed him from the metal rods separating the pavement from what lurks beneath the street level. There was something attracting the cat's attention, drawing him back to the sewer grate. Perhaps there was a source of food in the depth of whatever remained beneath the streets. We took the stray cat home and rechristened the unnamed feline Preston for Robert Preston of the Music Man fame. During that period, my husband and I were giving nomenclatures to pets reflected pop culture and entertainment. There was Simon for Carly, Addison, Bruce Willis character in Moonlighting, and Klinger for MASH. Resolving the flea and exposure to the environment, Preston quickly adapted to the other felines in the household. Preston was hardly Mr. Cuddles, but he had a distinct personality. Perhaps it was the kitty's coloring, coupled with the greenish gold eyes that intensified the black pupils that reminded you of Dot's candy. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, it didn't matter. This four-legged furball had an appetite for all foods consumed by humans. Cereal with milk, chicken, fish, cream cheese. The striped cat with the licorice dot eyes had a penchant for oddball cuisine that included bagels and fruit. Wait a minute. Preston didn't self-identify as a feline. He viewed himself as a short human with excessive body hair. Most household pets eat table scraps off the kitchen floor. Placing a piece of bagel or some chicken on the kitchen floor would emit a look of disdain from Preston. He would stare at you as if to say, "What do you think I am, an animal?" He would jump on the table and position himself next to my plate and did the feline equivalent of tapping one's foot out of frustration. Ever see a cat stare you down? Preston's preference was to have table food placed next to my plate, or he would acquiesce and eat on the floor, only if the food was placed on a saucer. Preston's quirks extended to personal hygiene associated with humans. This four-legged domestic house pet had a fondness for Aquafresh toothpaste. While the American Dental Association may not endorse felines licking the cap of the toothpaste tube, an even more ick factor, licking toothbrushes after they were recently used. The bathroom was Preston's domain. He would headbutt and nudge you until you turned the handheld hairdryer on his fur. This became a morning ritual. Preston loved the bathroom, probably because there was always a source of water. We made sure the lid of the toilet seat was always down. Numerous times I found the once homeless cat in the bathroom sink, positioned so his mouth could catch the drops of water from the faucet. Only Preston knew why he preferred tap water to spring water. At the time, the bathroom was very small that could only accommodate a stall shower. I came home from work and heard a distressed meowing. Preston jumped from the toilet seat to over the stall shower. Preston spent 8 hours in the confines of a stall shower. Being confined to a stall shower didn't dampen Preston's fascination with anything to do with water. Curiosity didn't kill this cat. There were hand washables in a plastic tub with woolite. Preston's love of water overrode the fact that there was laundry detergent in the tub. Preston's penchant for soluble liquids immersed with water continued. A crock pot was soaking on the kitchen counter. Dawn dishwashing liquid wasn't going to deter his inquisitiveness. Just as a child emits bodily waste and projectile fluids associated with poor food choices, So did Preston. And like good pet parents, we made trips to the emergency veterinary clinic. Nothing says I love you to a pet more than an overpriced visit to an emergency veterinarian. Preston was as manipulative as an overindulged 5-year-old child. I went back to school to get an advanced certificate. Preston was conditioned to me being at work at 8:45 and home at 5:15, being I worked only 5 blocks from home. My new schedule had me out of the house 12 to 13 hours a day. Preston didn't care that there was plenty of food and water. His concern was Mommy wasn't there. The petulant pet would go outside the litter box and make sounds associated with an animal in distress. Once again, we were frequent flyers at the emergency veterinary clinic. The third shift staff would be very attentive as they examined Preston. The Cheshire Cat of Chester County displayed a smirk and raised a non-existent eyebrow with a body language stating, "Who controls whom?" We took Preston to our regular vet, who determined my new schedule was disrupting his routine. When the 9-month course ended, so did his cat shenanigans. Preston displayed other traits usually associated with humans. He could have been a therapy pet. My husband was home from work with the flu and running a fever. Preston assumed the role of a caregiver, well, maybe a babysitter, remaining next to him in the bed. When my husband's fever broke, Preston decided his services were no longer required. Another time, my husband's diabetes was dangerously out of control. He was kneeling over the toilet bowl, trying to maintain the balance by holding onto the edge of the porcelain vessel, scared he was going to pass out. Preston sensed my husband was in trouble. The cat sprung into action by headbutting his backside to make sure my husband wouldn't fall asleep. He kept up with the rhythmic motion until my husband was able to stand up and walk. This was the only cat who believed in paying it forward. A stray gray cat was repeatedly walking by the basement window. I observed the stray gray cat pressing up against the window, and Preston helping him to get the window off track. I told my husband he'd have to board up the window. He said he would do it tomorrow. I went down the basement to do the laundry, and there was the gray cat sitting on the washing machine, and the window off track. Unfortunately, unbeknownst to us, the gray cat, who became known as Gray Boy, had FIV. Several years later, we lost both cats to FIV. Preston and Gray Boy, the gray cat, who became known as Gray Boy. When Preston passed from this life to the mythical Rainbow Bridge, we buried him in the backyard. That was not unusual. We buried him with a tube of Aquafresh toothpaste and a hairdryer. The hairdryer was brand new, just purchased the week before. Preston was a human being in the body of a cat.
Okay. All right, Caroline Alanthus is up next, and hang on, Caroline, after I read your bio, because I have to do some positioning here. Caroline is a novelist, blogger, and freelance writer and editor. Most of her work revolves around science somehow, even her fiction, or perhaps especially her fiction. She is the author of 4 novels, To Give a Rose, Ecological Memory, Bifurcation Events, and The Elf, the Dwarf, and the Telegraph, Book 1, as well as various blogs, short stories, and essays. Caroline grew up in Delaware and attended various small, odd schools, mostly in New England. She has a BA in Environmental Leadership and an MS in Conservation Biology. She now lives in Maryland with her husband and assorted dogs and cats. When she's not writing, she can usually be found either walking her beagles or making a complete mess of the kitchen. Okay, and Caroline is joining us tonight via Zoom. So let me turn off our video here and turn the screen around so everybody can see you, Caroline. All right. Okay, Caroline, take it away.
Hi.
She can't see us because the video.
Oh, all right. We're not hearing you very well. Hang on. We had our volume turned up. We're not hearing you very well.
Also, I can't see anybody.
Yeah, I turned the video off because it was a split screen.
Can you hear us,
Can
Carolyn?
you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Hi.
If you want, I can turn the video on again so you can see everybody. If you want me to do that, I can do that.
Yes, please.
Okay. There she is. Okay, let me turn your volume up again. Go ahead, say something, and let me see whether the volume. Keep going.
Okay.
Well, can you turn your volume up? Because I've got this all the way up, and you're still a little on the quiet side.
Does that help?
Can everybody hear?
We'll be quiet, yes.
Okay, we'll do our best.
Okay. This is the prologue from my fourth book. And I have to say, it might sound sort of ripped from the headline a little bit. Most of the book is not right. So,
There we go.
Abba Saras landed at the window of his office, looking out. He couldn't see very much, just the side of the massive treasury building and, beyond it, a sliver of the city stretching away between the hills and the river. The day was fine and smelled of spring, and he could hear the mob in the lower forum chanting for blood. His blood, actually. He sometimes heard his name. He was supposed to be getting sworn in as speaker soon, a private, all but secret ceremony that had always before been public and festive. The Capitoline Guard had set up barricades around the hill and deployed behind those barricades, on rooftops with crossbows and cavalry bows overlooking the upper forum, and even in the Curia itself. There had been talk of calling out the city garrison, but its legate was nowhere to be found, and anyway, the speaker was the only one with the authority to do such a thing. And of course, outgoing Speaker Canaan wouldn't. He'd been down in the lower forum himself, haranguing the mob earlier. He still hadn't moved out of the king's house. The sound of the mob changed. Abbas stayed at his window, calmly waiting. "Sir, it's time." His aide, Jonas Thomas Moran, stood at the door. Abbas knew he did not mean it was time for the ceremony. 4 miles away, Gwenesafir Shares Huon also stood, looking out. Out of the door of a tastefully opulent home in a very nice suburb of street trees, walled gardens, and honey-colored stucco. The house belonged to her foster father and her father-in-law, who happened to be the same person. She had tried for years to make something of herself, to support her wife and their children like a man, or whatever Gwen was, should. Now she was back under the roof of the closest thing to parents she had. She was almost 40. And the empire she'd served so faithfully seemed to have lost its collective mind. By the end of the day, the institutions of Republican governance would either protect and preserve themselves, transferring power peacefully according to the rule of law, or, "Daddy, what if," Gwen's 14-year-old daughter, Elia, standing in front of her in the doorway, asked. "I don't know, baby." The elfin blood ran strong in Gwen. It ran much weaker in Elia. But both could hear the crowd noise from 4 miles away. Both heard the moment the roar of the mob in the lower forum changed. There, in the Curia, was Gwen's foster father, Thomas. There, in the Curia, was her foster brother, Jonas. And there, in the Curia, was the beating heart of the Nanani Republic. 40 miles to the northeast, Hyras Silas Dinan, who most people outside of his family knew of as Euless Silas Dinan, sat at a picnic table plunking away at a kalimba. He could not play the instrument, in fact was indifferent to music generally, but his younger daughter, Adna, had left the thing sitting out. There was nothing else for him to do. Hyras' father was away in town, hanging around the telegraph office there, hoping for news and no doubt pontificating. His oldest brother was also in town, at work in the nearer of the family's 2 leather goods shops. Hyras' other brother was supposed to be at the other shop in the next town over, only he was busy dying of consumption instead. Hyras himself was supposed to be at one or the other shop, helping out, only he was busy not giving a shit about the sale of leather goods, because the Republic was likely falling today. Probably right now, actually, judging by the sun. The new speaker was supposed to be sworn in at noon. Hyras didn't need the sight to know that the outgoing speaker, who did not want to go out, would naturally use his influence on the mob to prevent the ceremony. Speaker Kanan publicly called the Speaker-elect the dwarf lover. Of course, Speaker-elect Leanne actually did love the Dirger people and the vast ancient forests they depended on for their hunting. The truth had been made into an insult because Speaker Kanan served those who believed it was their inalienable right to convert the ancient forests, the sacred groves, the wise and wrinkled dryads, to charcoal in order to make steel and ultimately money. The proverbial unstoppable force would be meeting an immovable object in the heart of the capital city right about now. There really were people who thought that way about the relative value of sacred groves, republican government, money, and power. People like Pyrrhus's father-in-law, who had lovingly given Adna the kalimba, an expensive...
Uh-oh. I did not do that.
Imported toy as a going-away present a few days ago. Pyrrhus's mother was inside preparing kids' egg hunt the next day on Analia. The children themselves, Pyrrhus's 3, and also his dying brother's 5, were with his wife, Ilia, off picking spring wildflowers for the holiday. In a few hours, his father would ride home bearing news, the first draft of history, and the news would be that the republic of over 300 years' duration had fallen before an autocrat employed by oligarchs. And then Pyrrhus would get up and he would do something about it.
Carol, thank you. Your internet connection was kind of cramping out toward the end, but we heard most of it. But thank you for joining us. All right.
We heard all of it.
We heard it.
Yep, good, and good to hear about your new book too.
What's it called?
Okay.
What was the book called?
What's that?
Can you ask her what her book was called?
Oh, I gave the title. The book is The Elf, the Dwarf, and the Telegraph, Book 1. That is in the bios too. Okay. Up next is Cass. Where is Cass? Here is Cass. Cass, C.K. Sobey is Cass's nom de plume. Cass has written and published 4 books. The first was an illustrated children's book titled Henry the Turtle, published in 2015. Cass fully retired from her professional businesses, hypnotherapy, and facilitating creative workshops in 2020 to spend more time imagining the next phase of her life. The next 3 books took shape. She is currently working on a novelette. She has lived in the Valley Forge area of Pennsylvania since 1999, returning to her native East Coast after living in California for 10 years. 2 of her favorite rituals are walking and letting loose in the kitchen with her recipes. Hey, just like Caroline there. One saying that works for her is, "It is often solved by walking." Cass's posts can be found on Substack, and her writing has also been featured in several publications, including Publishers Weekly, Reader's Views, Inside Scoop, The Reflectionary, The Midwest Review, and 101 Words. And you can find her at casssobey@gmail.com and www.innerharvesting.com. Cass.
Rules. There once was a boy, and all he did was run wild. His parents didn't teach him any boundaries. Guidelines and discipline were not their thing. So, time passed and the young boy explored experiences that his friends couldn't do because they weren't allowed to. After a while, the parents of his friends wouldn't allow their children any longer to spend time with him. The boy felt sad, but with a sharper edge of anger. New sensations grew within him, enticing and ensnaring him more because they were forbidden. The young boy became a teenager and participated in scary, evil things. In time, he began to develop an understanding of what felt good to him and what didn't. Life continued to offer many choices, and he began to recognize those. Some became messy and hurtful to himself, while others felt good. As he grew into a young man, he realized he needed clear boundaries for himself. He didn't call it rules, but this was indeed what was happening. After some time, a friend suggested he speak with a woman the friend knew. This woman was patient. She listened to the young man and heard him. He began trusting and talking with this woman more often. It was something he'd never done before. The woman counseled the young man, and together they set up further guidelines that could be amended and adapted to his life circumstances. One day he fell in love, and they became a couple. They planned a life together. The couple adopted a child, and he taught his child that there were different rules in life. Some were man-made rules, and other rules that were timeless. The man called them divine laws, that above all to use common sense and compassion. He allowed the seeds of his talks to plant themselves in his child. The seeds would grow at their own pace, and he would always be there if his child needed him. The jump. This was it, I thought, as I stared at the view from the top of the ridge. I waited to jump. I was number 20 out of 25 people designated to soar into the boundless depths of our galaxy from a platform suspended in space. As I watched, I breathed deeply, as they had trained me to when I wore the oxygen helmet. This helmet was my spacesuit and would be my entire home for the next several hours. I exhaled and remembered my home as a boy, the moment before my dad jumped and something ripped away his cord. While the jumper falls towards Earth, the attached line is like an umbilical cord feeding air to the jumper. Jumping's evolved over the past 25 years. Now jetpacks propel the jumper forward at a greater speed. No cords remain in use, just the jumper and the graceful, distinct movements each performs during the slow descent. During the jump, we travel through a black, airless void of time and space. Millions of stars, worlds, and galaxies shine brilliant fragments of lights and colors. I needed to experience the real thing. I longed for it, to feel the sensation of gliding towards my landing. I'd been training for this day most of my life. I remember being home with my mother the day they came to tell us about my father. That nightmare years ago. That day would shape the rest of my life. I would follow in my dad's footsteps of being a jumper. I knew he'd be proud of me. After Dad died, home was hollow. Mom seemed to quit living for a while. Now I will carry out this jump for my father. Wrapped and sheltered in my suit and helmet, I will make this jump for him in the silence of space. I won't spend much time at the graduation. Mom is expecting me, and I promised I wouldn't be late.
Three writers to go here. And Holly Beebe is up next. Holly has been writing in rhythm and rhyme for decades and has published her first children's book, The Day When Daisy Learned to Dance. Her next book, Daisy and the Veggie Hater, will be published next year. She has started giving events at early learning centers that include reading her book and getting the kids to dance with her. Holly also finished a book with a local resident, Jan Swar, about her life stories, and it should be available in the next few months. Tonight she'll be reading Daisy Gets a Buzz Cut and hopes to publish this story sometime in the future.
So here's Daisy right over here. She's my muse. And just so you know, this book is on sale. It's $18.99 on Amazon. It's $15 here. So you can pay Jeff Bezos or you can pay me. And Daisy has a paw print stand too. Okay, this was inspired by my hairdresser. She kept coming up with all these titles, like Daisy gets a buzz cut. I'm like, okay. And so Daisy has human qualities, so Daisy doesn't go to a groomer, Daisy goes to a hair salon. So Daisy gets a buzz cut. Daisy's fur was getting shaggy. Her fluffy tail was kind of draggy. It was time to get it styled so she wouldn't look so wild. Sitting in the special chair, the one for cutting special hair, Mary asked her how to style her shaggy fur that had gone wild. Well, said Daisy, what I'd like is cut it here from left to right, leave it long there on my head to cover both my ears instead. My tail, I'd like to have it shaggy so it can be all waggy waggy. Please just leave it on my toes and keep it long above my nose. I'd like it short around my eyes, and can you fluff it as it dries? Miss Mary said, while playing on her phone instead. Okay, got it, as she ate her great big piece of carrot cake. Daisy's face was filled with dread. Did Mary hear a word she said? Daisy shut her eyes to pray she would need some help today. Then she heard the loudest sound and felt her fur fly all around. Clumps and clumps fell down her face. Fur flew all around the place. Buzzing, buzzing in her ear. What on earth was happening here? Mary said, open your eyes. You will have the best surprise. I've cut your fur just as you asked. Your perfect style here at last. Daisy opened up her eyes, and this was not the best surprise. It was the worst cut she had seen, and she let out the biggest scream. What have you just done to me? Dogs will laugh hysterically when they see me here and there. All they'll do is stop and stare. Feeling like she had to hide, but tired of being stuck inside, Daisy went out to a park where all the dogs would play and bark. One dog said, I like your cut. It must be cool, and you know what? I think I want to look like you, so I'll be cool and comfy too. Daisy stood there fighting tears, shocked by what he said right here. He really liked her fur this way. She saw it differently that day. Later on, out in the square, there were buzz cuts everywhere. Dogs and cats with fur so neat, proudly prancing down the street. She could not believe her eyes. Now this was the best surprise. What started as a cut gone bad had turned into an awesome fad. Thank
you. Okay. We've got Jeff Mastroberti next. He hails from New York City and has been living in Pennsylvania since 2002. Jeff has read poetry at many venues, including libraries, bookstores, and churches, and has hosted poetry open mics in the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania area since the late 90s. Jeff.
I'm going to try to find this. I wrote...
Don't worry, I'm not starting until you actually find it.
Really? Oh, thank you. Okay, wait. Because it's something, a friend of mine, I should look up because I sent it to somebody else, I should have looked up Ernie instead of Roy. But Roy added to this, but I'm not going to put his part to it. A friend of mine we would texting, we don't talk anymore in person for some reason, he doesn't want to, so we just text. And it started with me though, but that's another reason. And it's not anything I said wrong. But anyway, so he said, the last thing he said is I planted basil in the garden, because he couldn't go to work that day. So I wrote this. I planted basil in the garden. He was not happy at all. He popped up green and brown. He tried to shoot me down. But I avoided the shotgun with a fall. I pulled Juniper from the garden. She was not exactly pleased. Was tug of war until she finally fell down to her knees. I need the blueberry flavor for my homemade wine. But she ran and got her cello in a rapid-fire breeze. I'm thinking of planting myself someplace nice, where deer roam free from hunters and the like. The beauty of nature, God, and my dreams will spread like wildflowers near a clear blue stream. And that's it. So that just popped into my head. All right, so anyway, this, and then I'll read spontaneity, because that was spontaneous. All right. All right, there are over 100 million places to be at any given time. It's too draining to figure out where you want to be. You're meant to be. Your destiny is waiting. That is why I look up at the deep blue sky. Oh, I'm sorry. That is why I take a deep breath, look up at the pale blue sky, and allow what we call spontaneity to take control. Let the energy flow through me, leaving me in places I never expected to be, expanding my world, people, places, life, and dreams. Stay away from the comfortable people, places, and things, and watch the energy flow through you, leaving you in places you never anticipated, expanding your world, people, places, life, and dreams. And this last one's a short one. It's called Without a Hush. I've probably done it here before. I think I did the other one before too. I just wanted to do this because I feel, when I wrote this in '04, I feel like kind of like the same way now. So it's called Without a Hush. Soybean circles fill the sky. Endless days surround our lives. Abstract paintings on the wall, memories cut like sharpened knives. Blistered moon shines brightly down on the shattering earth's ground. Never time to take a look as man destroys without a sound. The future's shaky atmosphere is what we have got to fear. Without understanding much, we go on without a hush.
All right. Thank you. And the writer with the last word tonight is Evan Harbaugh. Evan is a mental health therapist by profession with a postgraduate clinical license, but he writes in his spare time. He generally writes across genres, including romance, adventure, and sci-fi fantasy. He's also a trained researcher for the social sciences and received an award for research as an undergrad. He has copies of his novellas available for purchase here tonight. Evan.
Okay, this is the first scene of a relatively long short story. So. The tribal elders had spoken. She must be put before the serpent. For felling a single tree, such was the nature of the arbitration. Empowered by the great shining emerald, the serpent was her last resort, and its judgment superseded all others, because its life was the life of the forest, as vast and as wonderful as it was. Mariah stepped into the green light of the glade. In front of her accuser, Dom Karoa, a man she had known for many seasons. She understood her life was at stake, for in addition to being the final arbiter, the serpent was also the method of execution, its venom legendary to all of the Silva of the forest. Regardless, there in the clearing was the greatest, largest, and most venerated tree in all the known groves, if not the world. Now the drum sounded for the serpent to emerge, not an order, but a request. The ivy and verdigris-spotted serpent slithered out from the glittering hole of the tree, down to its exposed roots, to Mariah, and began coiling itself around her and exploring with its tongue and skin. Behind her stood her accuser, and when the snake turned upon him, all she knew, when the snake turned upon him, all knew she was either innocent or excused, and for the folly, the the great dragon serpent would consume the one who began the trial. Kuroa was bitten first, the bite holding venom, which was sedative and anesthetic. Mariah screamed and lunged and attempted to separate the serpent and Kuroa, but her brother and a few other men of the tribe held her back. "Please, great serpent, take me in his stead," Mariah implored. "It's not his fault. We thought that if someone so young was to be the accuser, the case would be more easily dismissed before the elders. We never thought it would get this far." A voice thundered down from the crown of the tree. "And how is it that in such a situation that neither the accused nor the accuser would be set to die? Trees are like our brothers and sisters." The snake-tongued oracle, the errant leader of the elders, appeared from a swirl and rustle of leaves. "We are near the 100th shedding. Our nation cannot bear this immaturity." She approached Mariah. "Our world is at a crossroads." The snake-tongued oracle grabbed Mariah by the throat, by the jaw and her fang-like fingers, and said, "And to think the serpent spared this half-breed." She released her, and the oracle said, "She was raised by humans." The oracle began walking away towards the oracle tree. "She is being groomed for her father's position on the council, though she shows no respect for our forest. All of this was considered." The oracle turned. She has a choice: to uphold her future as an elder, or to save Dom Kuroa and be exiled herself. Thank you.
Well, that's another wrap of our open mic night. Thank you to all our writers tonight. This has been another wonderful evening, and thank you to all of you for what you do. We couldn't have libraries without writers. Please avail yourselves of the books that are up there, written by several of our authors here. They are for sale. And if you'd like to talk to Caroline, she's still with us there on Zoom. Don't let her be lonely. And thanks everybody for coming tonight.
Thank you, Mark.